Mourinho or the squad, who's to blame? Or are we finally starting to see in plain view now just how far behind United are as far as quality goes compared to their top six-ish rivals? Now just hold that thought. Hold that thought, sir, because we'll get deeper into this argument a little bit later. And hello, I'm Adrian from allergiesinDecember.com, and this is the weekend recap. If you never joined us for this before, then this is just a recap of the goings-on in the top 4 leagues with a random bonus league rotated in just to increase our worldliness. However, given that the Champions League draw took place this morning, that will be our bonus league, the Champions League. Also, the weekend recap is sponsored by OneFootball, the best app out there to keep you updated on all things football. Custom news feeds with the fastest updates in the game, highlights, live match tickers, scores, videos, and so much more. Link to a free download in the description for iOS or Android. All right, let's go to the Premier League and start with Liverpool versus United. The first 30 minutes were, as Klopp himself put it, quote, "Brilliant start, one of the best performances we've had since I am in Liverpool. First half an hour was outstanding, but we scored only once. How we played was just perfect," end quote. And that all paid off with Fabinho playing an incredible ball over the top to Mane, who took it down calmly and slotted it past De Gea. Nothing he could do there. Can we just praise Fabinho though, who was my man of the match for this one, a guy who started pretty damn poorly in my opinion, has emerged into not only a great ball winner in midfield for Liverpool, but he's starting to spray the ball around quite competently as well, getting back to his glory days at Monaco 2 seasons ago. Give the captaincy to Virgil van Dijk and take the burden of playing your captain, Henderson, off of Klopp, because the midfield 3 he played today has to be the future for Liverpool. Fabinho, Wijnaldum, and Keita, all ballers. Of course, United hit back in fortunate circumstances, with Alisson making a mess of a cross and Lingard putting it in as the result to make it 1-1. Shout out once again to OneFootball with the slide push update of Alisson Blunderland after the goal. That was amazing. Anyways, frustrating half for Liverpool because despite slaughtering their opposition, they found themselves tied going into the half. But in the second half, Liverpool rediscovered their danger. And Firmino, who hasn't been incredible of late, certainly looked so while he was surrounded by the entire United squad and all of their reserves in the 18 and still managed to slippery salmon his way to forcing a big save out of De Gea. From then on, as if they weren't already, United were on the ropes. And when Naby Keita went off for Shaqiri, it was the beginning of the end. It was time to put this horse with a broken leg, that's United, out of their misery. From some great work by Mane, in which I think Ander Herrera is still trying to find his footing as a result of it, the ball eventually fell to Shaqiri, and yes, his strike was fortunate to deflect off of Young, but you can't say it wasn't deserved. And you could say that for a second as well, as yes, it was a fortunate deflection off of Bailly, but no person in their right mind would say that Liverpool didn't deserve this win, or even that United deserved to get something out of this match. There's simply no way in this regard. Here are some numbers that may help illustrate this point, and no, numbers aren't everything, but they are quite striking in this regard. United had 2 shots on target, while every single outfield player for Liverpool, every single one, including substitutes, at least had 1 attempt. Speaking of attempts, Liverpool had 36 of them in comparison to United's 6. To quote my Liverpool supporting friend, he said that he's seen Liverpool put up far, far, far less attempts against 2nd and 3rd division teams in the past. Shout out Russ, what's up, man? In fact, that was the most attempts by any team in the Premier League this season, the previous record being held by City versus bottom dwellers Huddersfield. United had 50 passes in the attacking third, while Firmino and Robertson alone completed 62 passes. That's cumulatively in the attacking third for Liverpool. Speaking of which, Shaqiri, who was brought on in the 70th minute, completed the same number of passes in the attacking third as Lukaku, a starter for United. Oh, and the pièce de résistance, United have already conceded 29 goals, 1 goal more than they had conceded in the entirety of last season. It's just, how? How does something like this come to happen? I guess it's 3rd season Mourinho, but... You know, I still think that Mourinho has to shoulder the blame for a lot of the problems that United has as far as discontent in the players, and when there's discontent and a lack of harmony in the dressing room, it makes it easier to point the finger than it does to fight for the guy beside you, you know? So yeah, Mourinho and his attitude have got to take some of the blame, if not maybe the majority of it. However, the argument that United's squad is just crap, and I mean, that has some legs as well. They don't have a midfield, like at all. They consistently, no matter who is thrown in there, they consistently have a Chuckle Brothers center back pairing. Ashley Young is not a good fullback, no matter what people say. Valencia is 67 years old. Shaw can't be trusted only due to his injuries. He has a ton of ability, but is injured too often. And no matter what combination is thrown out there, the attack is crap consistently and underperforms. Lukaku has regressed since his Everton days, etc., etc. I could go on throughout the whole squad, but the point is, besides perhaps De Gea, would any of United's starters and regulars feature in the starting 11 of any of the other current top 5 teams? Oh, and Pogba, when he's happy and in form, he could walk into most teams' midfields in the world. But as he is now, while he's unhappy, he's a walking haircut that does flicks and tricks and loses the ball. So what do you guys think? Is United just generally crap in all walks at the moment? Management, personnel, etc. Should Mourinho be blamed? Should the players be blamed? Let me know. It's an interesting discussion for sure. All right, let's move on and look at Wolverhampton as they went up against Bournemouth, and you can find two teams heading in more opposite directions right now. Bournemouth's form at the moment resembles that of Huddersfield and Fulham. One win in their last 6 matches for all three, except Bournemouth started well this season and have only dropped to 11th so far, whereas the others are in the relegation zone. Wolves hit a tough patch in October-November, but are really back on the up, having won their last 3 matches on the trot after their tidy 2-0 win over Bournemouth this weekend. Things are looking good for Wolves. Speaking of wins on the trot, Chelsea made it 2 on the trot after they had checkerboarded their form a bit. They went away to the lovely beachside oasis of Brighton and came home with a 2-1 win with yet another solid performance from striker Eden Hazard. Dude is on an absolute tear these days. 5 assists and 1 goal in his last 4 matches. Spurs are continuing to have a weird season. Weird in the sense that it's hard to get a read on them. They don't look very convincing, but they are getting the job done across all competitions at the same time. So this weekend was no different, with Spurs hosting the now relegation fodder that is Burnley, and it taking a 91st minute winner from Eriksen to get the win. It's not as though a 1-goal swing versus Burnley is anything new, with the way that they love to play some absolute bunker ball. But anyway, Burnley have been condemned to 18th now, while Spurs are keeping their heads just above Chelsea in 3rd. And finally, City set the tone for Liverpool earlier in the weekend as they hosted Everton, a tricky side, but there were no upsets to be had on the day that City's midfield king, Kevin De Bruyne, made his way back into the squad. They're really going to need him for this upcoming busy Christmas and New Year's patch of the season. By the way, City versus Liverpool in early January. Circle January 3rd for that one. Don't want to miss it. At home to Everton, they bounced back from their loss against Chelsea, with perhaps most importantly for City, Gabriel Jesus grabbing a couple of goals. With his problems in front of goal lately, it was about time he got back to scoring, because his confidence was looking completely shot, and with Aguero injured, they needed him. The first was a competent finish under an on-rushing Pickford, while the second he bulleted a header past Lil Picky in goal. Big props to Sané, who set up both. 3-1 win, job done. And job done in the Premier League as well. In the Serie A, it was a good weekend for the top half of the table, as the top 9 didn't lose a match. Of course, Juventus carried on winning, this time doing so against their local rivals Torino. It was an evenly contested match, with the only difference maker being Cristiano Ronaldo's penalty in the 70th minute. Ronaldo then celebrated in the keeper's face, which I am guessing was a reaction to some shit talking pre-penalty, but regardless, it's a derby. I'm okay with a little douchebaggery in the situation. So that makes for 16 matches unbeaten in the league for Juve. How would Napoli respond to their disappointing midweek loss to Liverpool that saw them bounce down to the Europa League? Fairly well, actually, as they went away to Cagliari, and despite dominating for long stretches of the match, it took some late heroics from Arkadiusz Milik to give Napoli the win in stoppage time from a free kick. That was his 8th in the Serie A this season, which I believe has almost doubled his best ever goal haul in one season. Yeah, his best was 5 goals, so not quite double, but surely he'll do so, right? Also, the team that just cannot be trusted at all. Inter Milan, they hosted a Udinese side that is now on the verge of death. Well, or relegation, and absolutely smashed them. But like Juve, ultimately needed a penalty to decide the match, which Icardi duly put away for his 9th goal of the season. By smashed, I mean play-wise, general play-wise, not on the score sheet. And finally, Roma fans who were so unhappy with their team's management that they released a letter outlining as much prior to their match against Genoa, and also stayed completely silent for the first 10 minutes of the game. Well, they were probably close to raging in this one, as Roma were a little sloppy, as per usual this season, and slopped their way to an eventual 3-2 win. Alright, that's it for the Serie A. In La Liga, Lionel Messi owned the weekend, as he was far and away the league's top top player this week, guiding Barcelona to a 5-0 win over 8th place Levante. Perhaps guiding is the wrong word, more like he propelled Barcelona over Levante with 3 goals and 2 assists, aka he was involved in every single goal out there. If we're talking goals in the calendar year, he was sitting at 50, while Ronaldo and Lewandowski are 4 behind him on 46. Barca put out a bit of a makeshift squad, and to be honest with you, early doors it looked like Levante would cause many problems in this match. But once Messi grabbed hold of the game, it was over. First, it was the pass to Suarez. Then he showed his deceptive pace to finish on his right, on his left for the second, and the hat-trick goal was sublime from Suarez as he left a Levante player on his ass. Then Arturo Vidal was generous enough to cut it across for Messi to tap in. And finally, Messi set the table for Piqué, who looked a calm number 9 up top. Domination. The way he stepped around that defender. Well done. Real Madrid, well, they still aren't looking great. I mean, after getting blanked 3-0, smacked up in their own home midweek against CSKA Moscow, of all teams, they had a chance to rebound against Rayo Vallecano, a relegation candidate. Well, they didn't blow them away, but it wasn't for want of trying, as Benzema was at his best on the day, and he ultimately scored the only goal of the match in the 13th minute, if not for Courtois, who made a couple of great saves. They actually outchanced Madrid, which was surprising. Atletico Madrid went away to Real Valladolid and came out as 3-2 winners with a brace from Griezmann, who also added an assist as well, involved in every goal, just like Messi. And finally, Sevilla won as well, getting a comfortable 2-0 win against Girona to ensure that they held on to second place in La Liga, tied on points with Atletico and 3 behind Barcelona. Real Madrid have slowly but surely climbed their way up as well, as despite their issues this season, they're just 5 points behind Barcelona. Does that speak to lessening quality from the big teams this season or a more competitive league? I'm not sure, but I do know that in the Premier League, Arsenal have played 1 less match than Barcelona and have the same amounts of points, yet find themselves in 5th and Barca are in 1st. It's a nothing stat, but it is interesting. Alright, let's quickly jump to the Bundesliga before taking a look at the Champions League draw. With none of the top 6 teams losing this week, it was pretty much as you were in Germany. Dortmund and Hoffenheim stretched their unbeaten runs to 15 and 8 respectively, and Dortmund did so with a competent 2-1 win at home to Werder Bremen, in which Paco Alcácer scoring as a starter? What? That was a clever goal, by the way, as it looked as if Guerrero was about to walk away from the free kick, only to catch the Bremen defense sleeping and whip in a perfect ball to Alcácer. Guerrero has been in solid form recently, just another weapon for Dortmund. Oh, and just another assist for Sancho as he set up Marco Reus. Reus now has 9 goals in 12 matches so far this season, and his best ever Bundesliga tally is 18 in 32, so he's on track there. Alcácer is the Bundesliga's top scorer now with 11 goals in 10 appearances, only the 3rd player in Bundesliga history to score 11 goals in his first 10 matches. RB Leipzig won 4-1 at home to Mainz with Timo Werner scoring yet another brace, which is insane because this dude loves to score in bunches. When he scored for Leipzig this season, he's only ever done it in 2s. 12 goals scored, spread evenly over 6 matches. The one time he scored a solo goal, he was playing for Germany in the Nations League. As mentioned earlier, Hoffenheim continued their unbeaten run with their 4th draw in a row, this time holding 2nd place Borussia Mönchengladbach to a 0-0 draw. Eintracht Frankfurt halted their 2-game losing skid with a 2-1 win at home to Bayer Leverkusen to ensure that they stay in the top 5 by their own doing and not relying on Hoffenheim's failures. And finally, Bayern Munich have continued to turn their season around a bit with their 3rd win in a row in the Bundesliga, defeating Hanover 4-0 away. So, Bayern are tied with Gladbach, but sit in 3rd, still 9 points behind Dortmund. Alright, both Bayern and Dortmund learned their Champions League fates this morning after the draw took place in, well, the early hours for me, 3 a.m. man. But anyway, let's go through it and I'll give my snap reactions to each tie. These aren't going to be my predictions. I'm going to do a prediction video later on, but just my snap reactions. First off, a fellow German team, Schalke, was drawn against Manchester City. I'm sure City fans will be feeling okay about this one, especially since if all goes well, they'll have most of their starters back from injury by the time this comes around. Can't count Schalke out, as they could surprise, but I think City should be fine in this one. Atletico Madrid versus Juventus. I really don't expect this one to be an exciting matchup, as when Juve have played against other big teams, or just any team in general really, they tend to be low-scoring affairs. That suits Atletico to a T, who love a bit of defense, don't they? I think Juve's quality will bring them through, but only a 1-goal swing in this one. United versus PSG. If United play as they have lately and PSG play as they have lately, namely against Liverpool, then I can only see PSG coming out on top of this one, and it could get embarrassing for United. Sacking season? We'll see. Spurs versus Dortmund. Now, as I said earlier, it's hard to get a read of Spurs because they are, by all accounts, having a great season, but haven't looked mega convincing at the same time. I expect this tie to be tight, but Dortmund to just come out on top. Could even be on away goals. Lyon versus Barcelona. Now, Lyon went undefeated in their group, but only had one win. One win and 5 draws. Their luck is surely going to run out against Barcelona. Barca to coast through, but I hope it's more competitive than I am assuming it will be. AS Roma versus Porto, two teams with very differing form at the moment, and I honestly believe that Porto will make a statement in this round of 16 encounter, showing that they aren't an easy draw for any of the teams that will meet them in this tournament. Porto through 2 goals clear, at least. Ajax versus Real Madrid. I truly believe that Ajax is one of the dark horses, and like Porto, will show that they aren't to be trifled with or taken lightly in this competition. Madrid could of course improve in the next 2 months, but as things stand, I see Ajax just squeaking past Real Madrid. And finally, Liverpool versus Bayern Munich. Though Bayern has been improving lately and of course will be bolstered by the incredible Alphonso Davies, my fellow Canadian, I don't think that they're anywhere near the level of Liverpool at the moment, and I can't see Kovac getting the better of Klopp here. Liverpool to go through, perhaps not as easily as some think, but still, Liverpool to make it through. Alright everyone, that is it from me. A long episode, but hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, then a like always helps us out, and drop a dislike if you didn't. My name is Adrian, I thank you for spending some of your precious time with me, and I'll see you later this week. Take care!